Today, we as scientists will be talking about Garmin's Firstbeat sleep staging algorithm. We'll also be talking about blood pressure measurements with wearables, and also about Stefan's VO2 max, and about this crazy thing he's wearing on his head.
Yes, it's blue light glasses or light therapy glasses that I use in the mornings to activate myself. And I thought I bring those, and we will talk about a little bit of my activation protocols in the morning and what you do in the morning.
Which is much less structured. And we'll talk about daily exercise or activity. So not really your sports per se, but more so this daily thing. But I think Stefan will expand more on that later. Now, this is the Fit for Science podcast where we talk about science, fitness, how we use different health things in our life, both technology and non-technology, and just the things we are interested in also in terms of developments in science. And let's start with the Firstbeat algorithm or the Firstbeat sleep staging of Garmin watches. Now, we've talked a bunch about sleep stages in this podcast, and I don't want to go too deeply into this, but I was just looking into the history of sleep tracking, and I remember that Garmin back in the day bought this Finnish company, I believe, called Firstbeat, and they're basically implementing their algorithms in many of their devices. And as far as I know, this is still used to some degree, at least in most of their devices. And then I looked back at the papers or the white papers that they published about this. And what I found quite interesting is that they already used things like beat-to-beat intervals, and they mentioned that as the first thing in the sleep staging. And this is already in 2019, so quite a while ago, when sleep staging was still in its infancy with wearables. So these are deep sleep, light sleep, and REM sleep. And back then, they already figured out that these beat-to-beat intervals were very important, even though they must have been much harder to measure.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that makes me feel like there wasn't as much development in wearables as I thought. It somehow feels like very incremental changes, like there wasn't a big thing that changed. Over the last 10 years, if you think about big changes in wearables, I cannot really think of anything that has been like a great development. Back then, they could already have some GPS-based things. I mean, they implemented them better now, but it already existed.
Yes.
Heart rate tracking on the wrist already existed. And sleep staging was already done, and actually in a very similar way to now. So I don't know. I guess I was also kind of disappointed at like
missing step function.
Exactly. I thought in my head, I was like, these things are now so amazing. And they are so much better. They're just not that innovative in ways that stuck.
Yes. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's what still has to be said is that a lot of things were separate, right? You sometimes still if you wanted to have really good heart rate measurements, you had to rely on a chest strap.
Mm-hmm.
I think this has been solved to a high degree.
Medium degree.
Medium, okay. Yeah. Or it's much better and more reliable that some people, even like people who are like doing hobby athletes, but still they partake in competitions, they would not wear a chest strap. They just say, okay, this is fine for me for training, to do some training in heart rate zones. I think this wouldn't have been possible before. And also putting everything into one watch, maybe before only one watch could GPS, but if you want something else, you don't have GPS inside. Maybe that was not there. And if they have already had that back then also, maybe data was more scarce, so they had maybe the approach, the mechanism, but didn't have the scale to deliver on the promise of the current accuracy that we have in sleep stages.
Maybe to a degree how neural networks are very old, but only now became more and more relevant, I would say.
Exactly, like in the day, when are they from the 80s
or something?
I think so, 80s, yes. Yeah, Geoffrey Hinton was the... Geoffrey Hinton was the one, at least who then added backpropagation, which made neural networks trainable. And then only in the 2000s with ImageNet and AlexNet was the deep learning revolution.
Maybe we should can you give some context?
Yeah.
How this in current day plays a role in our lives?
Yeah.
Neural
nets in general?
Yeah.
Or
what we can work is now very...
Exactly. Persuasive is obviously large language models. Yeah. And underlying there's technology of neural networks, definitely. And maybe it's similar there that a lot of the components across history and technological development were already there, but they had to be combined in the right way. And also some technologies had to catch up. So I don't know, Maisuuntu from the I don't know when I had 2017, which had GPS.
Just to clarify, Stefan said Sunto.
Yes.
Sunto. Well,
Sunto.
I don't know how we pronounce it. One of the brands of smartwatches.
Yes, the one that I had in 2016, 17, was already able to measure my heart rate with a heart rate monitor, and it had a GPS and a timer and so on. So with two components, I was close to what I have now, but I do not know about accuracy. So the components were there, but we had to combine it. But now maybe everything is coming together in a more structured way. And as alluded to last episode, an Apple Watch that does this, the exercise tracking and the sleep tracking, and then a lot of other things as well, because it's a smartwatch. It's like it has its own app store. It's like an iPhone on your wrist, basically. Maybe this is rather the advancement, but we see it also with the new iPhone generations, right? The iPhone 1 was revolutionary. Then there were some stepping stone innovations, but I don't know, in 10 generations, we have this kind of incremental increases that are still amazing if we think about it, what our phones can do. But nevertheless, maybe this, what you were hoping for, is missing.
I mean, it's also, I didn't realize this feeling until I really started thinking about it and read this. My feeling was that a lot changed and improved.
Yeah.
And in ways it did. There was just no new major thing that got added. But maybe there is also no new major thing that there is, or that we need or
exactly.
a need would be created. And now talking about it, one thing that did improve is the whole integration and app as well. Like, it's not just the raw measurements or even the processing to a derived measurement, but also the showing it to you and then sort of processing that and giving you tips or advice or anything like this.
I mean, we can also reflect on the data science bit, the part. I think in your videos as well, you often use correlation, right? And Pearson correlation is also more than 100 years old. And you could also say, wow, I would have thought that we in the 2020s, we do this much more sophisticated. And obviously there are even transformers and super large models for wearable data, and to predict then, for example, you put some signal in and it predicts the activity. But for a simple question to ask, a simple tool might still suffice. And our tools just got implemented into much more powerful technology. And now the correlations obviously do it in milliseconds, right? When you run it in R, it's just like boom and it's done. Maybe before you would have, like, I don't know, a few 10 of years ago, you would have sat there with a table and had to calculate it yourself. Because the formula was there, right? And maybe it's similar with this interbeat intervals, or how is it called again?
Yeah, beat-to-beat intervals or interbeat intervals. I think it's the same word.
And also the accuracy of detecting those in different areas, like finger, wrist, arm, chest strap. I mean, this is very different, right? So this also required some technological advancement also to make it then accessible, because how many people are running around with chest straps all day? I don't know many. I know a few who do it some days.
But not regularly.
Exactly.
I think maybe one of the people in my self-tracking or in our self-tracking study, I think does it quite more often, but that's like the exception to the exceptions.
And now everyone could have a Whoop, an Oura Ring, or an Apple Watch, or any other of the smartwatches that are able to do that. And so the accessibility is just increased by magnitudes. But sometimes the core is still old and it's the same because it works.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I was just a bit surprised. And just how close the description of the algorithm is to what we would do now, at least in its basic principles.
Yeah.
And just they have this thing called a confusion matrix, where they basically see how does it compare to the reference. And it's so much better in these papers. So there's like one white paper and one proper published paper.
Can you quickly say what a white paper is and how does it differentiate between...
Maybe I'm misusing the word.
I don't think so.
But it's basically something that they wrote to describe the whole thing, but it was just published on their own website describing why they made this tool, what it does. But nobody ever from the outside would ever check if anything they say is true. It's just sort of their description of their idea behind doing this.
Compared to what we strive for in our work, we also write papers, but these are, what's the biggest difference between those?
Well, when we publish, we make sure that it gets peer reviewed by, we don't even choose them. It gets peer reviewed by an independent group of scientists that we have no control over who those are. For the most part, you can sometimes exclude people, but that's the only thing if they have a conflict of interest. So that independently, people that are in a way your competitors verify that what you do is correct, that you didn't make up some things in as far as they can check, and that your conclusions match the data.
Exactly, that like data, methods, conclusions align to the degree that you claim it, right?
Yeah.
It's always this claim that you make, and then you provide evidence, and the reviewers should judge if the evidence is sufficient for that claim or if more evidence is needed.
Exactly.
Which is called revisions. But the white paper difference is, I think, or how we are using it here, maybe as a technical report, is more a description from the company, but there is no, often it's even impossible from a business perspective, right? That they have peer review because they wouldn't let anyone else check the details because it's their proprietary intellectual property.
Exactly. In the sort of, maybe white paper is not the right word, but their unpublished paper, let's say.
Yeah.
There they describe the method to a degree. And then in the original paper, at least as I remember it, it was more about validation and less so about how the algorithm works. Whereas for the validation, you can show more of how you did it because there's nothing proprietary there.
Yeah. You just take the outputs. Basically.
Exactly. You take the outputs and
from
you compare
when,
them.
Again, are these two papers?
So
the technical report was
the technical report or white paper was 2019, and they then published it in 2021. Where actually in their new validation, they performed a little bit less good. So the paper shows slightly lower numbers, but not that far off, and a lot higher numbers than in any more independent validation I've seen afterwards of the Garmin algorithm.
Okay.
But there's also a difference there, right? Between their idealized measurement from which they calculate sleep stages versus implementing it in a small watch.
Yeah.
Which I think can have both worse data and also worse processing capabilities. You need to maybe make some decisions.
And
yeah. Anyway, I found it interesting also how good those percentages were in both those papers for the time at least.
Yeah.
At the moment, even those papers compared to what we saw, for instance, in the Oura Ring in our validation study, they're already significantly lower, even in their own...
in the best case. So
in their best case scenario. But this is 6 years ago, right? 7 years ago. So.
And when did Garmin acquire them?
Around that 2019 time.
Okay.
So I don't know if they put it out because they were acquired by Garmin, because they might soon be acquired by Garmin. This is before I was doing any of the wearable stuff, except for my own personal tracking. So I was not in the scene.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact history events. I bet DC Rainmaker would. He has been in contact with Garmin for a long, long time. He's like sort of OG smartwatch reviewer. I think he would know the timelines a lot better. But I found it interesting. But talking about developments, one thing that has been implemented for a few years now in some wearables is blood pressure measurements. And well, blood pressure is sort of a proxy for health, cardiovascular health in a way, or an indicator that if you have this pressure in your vessels for a long time, this could damage the vessels.
Yeah, it's definitely a large risk factor for arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease of any kind. But it's also not only your cardiovascular system is under pressure, but also your organs receive this pressure. And this is really a numbers game over time, that if you have increased pressure over time, the system starts to fail. And so this is, I think, one of the strongest predictors of certain morbidities.
And I think this is super interesting because my family has high blood pressure. I also have blood pressure on the high side, at least, especially for my fitness level and my eating habits. It should be lower, but it is just quite high.
Because we can assume that you do all the lifestyle interventions that are recommended to probably the best degree.
Except for sleep, where sometimes I should maybe get half an hour to an hour more, but I'm not in the big sleep deprivation camp. I'm always sleeping 7 or more, or in bed 7 or more hours. I would prefer even a bit more because consistently more than 8 would be better for me, but it's I'm not the worst, but also not the best in that. But in terms of nutrition, I'm quite okay. I think in terms of number of cardio and strength hours, I'm quite okay. But still, just because of genetics, I'm in the relatively high blood pressure camp. So I was quite excited when some of these wearables like Galaxy watches, for instance, or now the Whoop strap started implementing blood pressure measurements. But some background, most blood pressure measurements use something that inflates and then can, in a way, measure more or less directly the blood pressure. It's not super directly, but the most direct way that we can without doing something very invasive.
I think the somewhat degree gold standard in a physician's practice, everyone has done that, is again coming back to the brachialis, the upper arm area where there is a lot of circulation, and really this brachialis artery, this nice artery that a lot of people see on their biceps when they do curls, is mostly obstructed by this pressure. Like you pressurize a cuff to that degree that there is zero signal coming through, and in the cuff there is a measurement device, right? You pressurize it, and then there's nothing, and then it releases it, and when it starts hearing is the wrong word, sensing a pulse, this is the systole, and then it releases it more for the diastole. Yeah.
And the reason you say hearing is because classically a doctor would do it with a stethoscope.
Yeah.
And I think this is actually still considered the gold standard. Even the machines are not
even the automated machines.
I think they still have some bias sometimes.
Okay.
I didn't investigate this deeply, but for at home, the best you can get is like these machines at home. There's a ton of brands out there. I think common ones are like Omron, Boirer, and a few more.
I have a Boirer.
Exactly. So there's a bunch of these manufacturers, and I have an Omron myself, just because it's like a established brand. That's the easiest to didn't investigate it very deeply. And from this, I know usually my blood pressure will be above 120 for the systolic, and diastolic is like 70 something. So on the higher side, and it can be even in the high 120s on normal days even, and even above that if I'm a bit more stressful day.
And when would you measure? Like in the morning, in the evening?
I used to, when I did it consistently, it was always morning after waking up and evening before going to bed.
Okay.
And it was usually, it could be even below 120 sometimes, but not consistently, let's say.
And sitting down. I think that's, we are not medical doctors. We keep repeating that, right? But some things we have picked up over time and that we are happy to share. And one of the things I think with these measurements is try to do it always same time of day, same constitution. This is actually true for most measurements. So if you also have a scale, if you have a smart scale, if you go for blood draws regularly, try to do it always in the same time to remove these confounders that we hate, because there are too many variables, and the more you remove, the better. But I think one more tip is sit down and stay seated for 5 to 10 minutes before, and have the device that measures it on the same height as the cuff and as the heart.
Exactly.
Right?
This is what I tried to do for many years. Now I'm not so consistent with measuring anymore, but I did do it like have the cuff at heart height. So basically your biceps at heart height. Have something to put your arm on top of, like rest the arm a little bit on that's how I did it.
Okay.
And then make sure that I'm sitting up straight. And usually I would fill out questionnaires before the measurement. So I would have some minutes of sitting down and then I would do it. But then these devices came out that said they could do it on your wrist. And there is a subclass of device that actually has a cuff in the band of the smartwatch that inflates, which is already a bit closer.
Obstructive, but still it's like it's literally obstructive because it has to be, right? But it's also like you notice it. It's not...
Actually, I still want to test it. This, to me, has the biggest chance of being reliable because you can actually also do it all day. One thing I want to talk about in a second is, does it make sense to measure at rest after sitting down and all these things if basically that value is not reflective of what you and your organs are exposed to every day continuously? But that's a different topic. Let's finish the smartwatch thing first. So things like the Galaxy Watch, the Whoop strap, more devices can claim that they can now measure it. I'm so far disappointed both by the accuracy of the measurements and also by how it's implemented in most cases, because it basically means you have to calibrate it every few weeks or week or whatever the value may be with this cuff-based thing. So you still need to own the cuff-based thing, And then I've seen just it drifts away from it for me. And then I calibrate it again. It goes back to roughly the calibration value and then it drifts, or it's just
So interesting.
the calibration determines so much what comes after that. Is one measurement then determines, and I think there's just too much noise.
Do you think that this is a gigantic effort to get to some degree gold standard data sets, right? They get your measurement from the Whoop strap, for example, which is the input data, and then they get the ground truth as well, because you have to calibrate it. And now this is a huge effort to first get actually the training data, and then in the next generation it suddenly will work very well, because this is now...
I don't think this was the intention, but it's of course a valuable data set for them. If you, I don't know if you have to say yes, opt in, or if this happens automatically.
I think if it's anonymized, they basically can do it. I mean, there are so many regular analyses of Aura data, which I find also interesting. Like, during fall, Aura members have, I don't know, increased their running or whatever. So, okay, where do you get the data from? Well, then the bottom is always we anonymized the Aura data, and it's a huge data set already.
Question is, can you de-anonymize it? Like, were they careful? But that's a separate thing. But so far I think I don't trust these things. I've not, in my testing on me, seen it work very well. And I think Apple here did it a little bit smarter. That you don't never need to calibrate it, but they will just give you sort of a hypertension notification. That if your patterns...
I have no idea about Apple's hypertension or blood pressure game, actually. What is the whole
So they implemented
setup?
it recently with their latest generation.
Okay.
I don't know which devices actually have it, if you can still upgrade from which older devices, but let's say at least the Series 11 and Ultra 3 should be able to do it, as far as I know. And they basically just give you a hypertension warning after measuring you for some weeks. And that's just based on your patterns of what they can measure with the PPG. They can classify you in either the risk group or not risk group. And they just say, hey, see your GP.
Okay.
And I think that's like the safest, but also potentially most sort of society improving way of doing it.
That's true.
Because how much value is there in knowing your blood pressure every morning, let's say, with these wearables in exact numbers versus measuring one time yourself with the cuff every week? I don't know how much added value is there. But people who would never normally measure it, and then I don't know how many people own an Apple Watch, especially in the US.
Yeah, no.
And that then get this warning. And if then 1 out of 3 of them decides to go to the GP even, and then 1 out of whatever, 50% of those get diagnosed with hypertension and get medication, or 1 out of 20 actually does lifestyle changes. I think it could actually extend a significant group of people's lives.
I think with the current performance, I agree what you're saying. You're saying Apple is really smart, and in terms of societal impact, doing the right thing, right? I think that's true, because everything that doesn't work well right now, for example, the other competitors, basically you test it, you look at it as a user, and then you disregard it, right? Because it's not working. And to get someone to revisit something like that is really hard, because they tested it 1 year ago and it didn't work. It's always the AI argument. But it's a different story. I guess Apple realized this, and as we've discussed before, they'd rather want to put out high quality, but at the same time they are in competition. So what did they do? They took the middle ground. Hey, we have a data set with these kind of patterns. Do you know that they only use the PPG data, or do they use more?
As far as I know, it's only PPG.
Okay, and PPG is for... It's a light
sensor,
right?
Yeah.
And they basically saw in their machine learning that the prediction of hypertension, yes, no, a binary task, a classification task that only has 2 outcomes, is much easier, right? Than
this I'm
the
assuming,
regression task.
I think there's no white paper out on this yet. I think I even asked for it to my contact, but they didn't have one.
But it looks like it, right?
Exactly.
We see the outcome, and now we reverse engineer. And I think the reverse engineering that I propose now is that it's a regression task. If you want to do it accurately, we have an input, and then what does it mean, a regression task? You want to predict a number. And this is much harder, especially if everything between 90 and 150 for systolic could be, or even more now, 70 until, I don't know, 150 could be for systolic reasonable. It's really hard to predict the right one. And 10 being 10 off is really bad already.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard task from a machine learning perspective. And the much easier task is split it in 2 groups and predict the top worst and the top best. As you actually know from one of your papers as well, the hardcore things to predict is easier, or the extremes. And basically they put then that probably in. And as you say, for society, it is probably better than what the competition did right now. But I do not think it's better than having the exact number, if the number would be correct. So given the number would be correct, I would still think this is better, because then people could themselves, without visiting a GP, trust the number, right? So they would have this hurdle less. And also they would realize that certain things, for example, a drink or a few drinks the night before, or a bad night, or a fight, or whatever, elevates consistently their blood pressure, right? And they could make lifestyle adaptations without any medication. Because at the end of the day, the GP will say, oh, yes, I can confirm you have high blood pressure, but there we have this problem of, how's it called, white coat blood pressure effect, that often people have a higher blood pressure when they visit the doctor. Because first of all, they don't sit down for 5 minutes first, because the GP has no time. But then they are nervous, they are excited, or like negatively excited because of the measurement, and what could it mean? So often, actually, GPs prefer that you measure at home 3 times over, or every time for 3 weeks, and then take the average and come with this number to them, because then it's also more representative. So they could get a misdiagnosis actually, because they visit a GP, and then the GP would obviously say, okay, let's go through the lifestyle checklist. And then if people don't follow the lifestyle, as you said, that's the likelihood is very low, they would escalate to something pharmacological. And I just think if people in a reliable way see immediately the effects of their actions, and I think with blood pressure, you might see it. There are two things. You might see some things immediately, but obviously you can also work yourself up to a high blood pressure with obesity, for example, or chronic stress, that you visually see this or appreciate it, or also over time, that during a PhD, maybe your blood pressure increases by 10. And you say, yes, I aged some years, but also I had this stressful period. And then reflect, right, because of this immediate feedback loop that is without a GP.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think as the technology gets better, it's definitely valuable. And especially some of the things I didn't think about that you just mentioned, but also technology isn't there yet.
Yeah, no.
So I think Apple's playing it safe in a good way.
In a good way, definitely.
But definitely it takes away some power from people to do stuff themselves, to improve and track themselves. So they need to buy the cuff.
Yes, and have to do that as well, which is probably something they don't want to do for a long time.
And in a way, a burden.
Exactly. And if it's done automatically and I don't notice, it does not interrupt me. This is again this beauty of these devices. And maybe we had a step function improvement that, as you said, how many people have an Apple Watch? They have basically a quantified self device on their wrist. And even before that, the iPhone really early introduced step counting, right? And everyone had it just per default on. So you could even pull up now 10 years or more. If you had for 10 years an iPhone and always synced it, then you have more than 10 years of step data, which is a proxy of your daily activity to some degree. Obviously, as we discussed previously, it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's already this, how it is integrated in our everyday life. And we just have these numbers suddenly at our disposal. And if they're integrated in a meaningful manner and inform people in a respectful way to improve their lives, I think there's a benefit to it. But really good that you bring that up, because recently a friend asked me, so what's the current status of portable blood pressures, blood pressure measurement? And I was like, I have no idea, but I'm still, everything I've learned also in university in biomedical engineering was like, this will be really hard to solve, because on the wrist, for example, there are too many artifacts for this kind of measurement.
I mean, Huawei now is the famous one with the wrist-based smartwatch that has the cuff built in.
Yeah.
And they say they're now getting approved by, I don't know, it must be Europe, because they're not allowed in America to be a medical accepted device. As far as I know, don't quote me on this, but I still want to test it to see how it agrees with the reference.
I mean, it would be, as you say, it would be a game changer.
Yeah, okay. But it's a cuff.
It does inflate,
Yeah. So it's not very comfortable and it makes some noise during the night. But that's actually...
And what's the size? Just out of interest.
It's not that... It's like a big smartwatch, but not big. And they're now generation 2. It's standing... You can see it from your corner. But I can pick it up later. But one thing I wanted to ask you before I forget, and this is something I haven't investigated, but maybe you have some thoughts. So the idea behind high blood pressure is that the high blood pressure affects your organs, your arteries in a negative way, chronically. And then we have to measure it after being at rest for 10 minutes, which is probably not the state we're in during most of the day, only at night. So let's say 8 hours we are in rest, and most of the day I'm not at that blood pressure. Why do we use that? Because maybe if you're stressed, your blood pressure is actually much higher during the day.
Yeah.
And that's causing the damage in a way. And this I've never grasped. Maybe the sort of lowest one you can measure is sort of a proxy for, and that's what sort of we've always measured, and that's why we use that as reference values. But that's not what actually is doing the damage in a way.
Good point. I really have to now think it on the spot, and everything I say is kind of trying to make sense.
We can get back
what
to it
we
also
know
in a later episode in more detail if we want to.
I have some thoughts. If you're curious, if you want to risk it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm very sure that the blood pressure at night during lying down is significantly lower than after sitting 5 minutes upright. So I think you don't measure what you actually experience for, let's say, 8 hours per day. It's actually even lower than that. But and the next thing is, I think most of us, or at least in knowledge work, are having sedentary occupations. So I think it is representative of a high degree of at least the time during the day, but not, for example, when I walk to work, when I cycle to work, when you work out, or when you get this great email that destroys your day. But I think why this is the gold standard is not because this value is the one that causes harm, but this value is the one that was always measured in all studies. And that's, I think, the crux. So we do not know that, 120, what is the unit in English? I don't know. It's like millimeters of
mercury,
not quicksilver. That would be the direct translation from German. Millimeters of mercury. So 120 millimeters of mercury for systolic blood pressure. So where there's more pressure. I think this is the thing that was measured. So, okay, if we want to do a study and we want to relate blood pressure to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease outcomes, MACE are there also abbreviated, these events of cardiovascular disease, like a heart attack or a stroke, then you measure the people in this state because this is a reproducible state. And therefore, this state is also useful to measure. I think this is because there we have the most data. Everything else is, from a data analysis perspective, also from an experimental, it's a mess. How would you even wrap your head around it, right? I mean, it's good that they thought of it like this, because if you would measure, for example, your blood pressure during one of your bike rides, you would actually think, oh my God, what's going on there? I mean, you will have, 180 or so on your systolic millimeters of mercury. And this is completely fine. This is the classic difference between hormesis and injury, right? This is a hormetic thing that you increase it for some time to cause adaptations. In this case, for example, to your whole arterial system or your whole endothelial system. So the endothelial cells are the inner lining of all your arteries, to cause them to adapt to these kind of pressures. And that is one of the features why exercise is healthy for cardiovascular system. But the problem is always this difference between what is it only intermittent, and is there enough recovery afterwards, coming back to recovery, or is it a constant state? And this becomes at some point, this constant assault is an injury and causes inner injury. And then we will have endothelial dysfunction, which is one of the hallmarks of cardiovascular disease.
Maybe endothelial cells are the cells around the arteries.
Yeah, the inner lining.
Yeah.
The inner lining of the arteries. The arteries is muscle.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a muscle layer, right? Exactly. These cells are the inner lining of the arteries, basically, yes.
Just to close it off, for me, from my side, I do think that if we can get these continuous measurements going, it could be very cool and valuable also for research.
Yes.
To be sort of, I don't know, an analogy would be continuous glucose monitors versus just spot checks every morning.
Totally. Really, 100% agree. It would just give you suddenly this look into the real dynamics of blood pressure over time, and everything like over time is much better than these spot checks that are arbitrarily chosen, right? I mean, I think they chose the best worst thing as so often. They have to choose something, and I think it made sense. And now we have this data. That's why we have to reproduce ourselves the protocol when it was measured, because this is the proxy, but obviously it's not representative of also your night or whatever. So I think this is a very good point. And these devices could become a huge contributor to a medical revolution, but it's a hard task. It's it's a very different challenge, but also people ask me, when will we get wearables for continuous glucose monitoring that are non-invasive? Because, and also can be worn all the time, right? These continuous glucose monitors can only be worn 14 days, right?
Sometimes a bit longer, but yes.
Okay, but very limited amount of time, and you have to apply it, and you have to take care of it, and you have to cover it.
Yeah, but let's say 10 days to 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, but still, this is not and you have to buy it. It's not cheap. So it's not a reliable solution as just, hey, I have it on my smartwatch, right? Again, coming to the accessibility issue. And I mean, you did the continuous glucose monitoring.
Yes.
But I wanted to do it for a long time, but it's, I think, cost prohibitive. And I always then do more things that are done once and I have information instead of doing these things that always only give me this peak.
I will see if I can get you some CGMs and then we can have an episode about it. Would be interesting.
Super interesting.
I have some connections that could potentially help, but we'll see how easy it will be. So we actually, but we're already quite far in the episode, we have a topic about VO2 max and your intuition about sports watches, but I suggest we move that to next week.
Fair enough.
And I want to learn more about your morning routine because we're talking about sleep.
Yes.
But then you have to wake up.
Exactly. And that's always
and then
the
you have to
worst
look
part.
like a weird person, apparently.
Yes. You don't have to. But there's a thing like called sleep inertia, right? Sleep inertia everyone has. Blessed people have it very shortly. So these are the people that tell you, when I wake up in the morning before the alarm, I open my eyes and I'm fully there. So they basically have no sleep inertia. And then there are people who say, I first realize on which planet I am, then I contemplate about life, then I have to have my first 4 coffees, and then I start accepting that I have to start my day. So this is the 2 extremes, so to speak. And I have some sleep inertia, and I don't love mornings, right? But I think I have figured out some things that at least make me presentable in a finite time, both visually, but also to work with, pleasant to work with. And one of those things is my most recent addition are these light therapy glasses that basically, do you want to try it?
Ooh, yes.
That basically push a lot of light from a proper angle right into your eyes.
So you can wear it with normal glasses.
Yes, I put it behind my, like the hook here.
Yeah, you have, so for people who are listening, Stefan has very thick rimmed glasses, also fully plastic, and I have very thin rimmed glasses. So it seems to be a bit easier for me probably to
I think so,
get them on. So I have this metal frame.
Yeah.
And basically you get light from above your eyes.
Exactly. And you can still...
Very white light or blue light.
Yeah, exactly. And you still can do all your everyday morning things. This is the reason why we got...
It's not blocking your vision.
No, that's the point. Exactly. Very good. Succinct. It's not blocking your vision such that you can put that on and carry on with your whatever morning routine is. But many people, Andrew Huberman, one of them, but he wasn't the first and he will not be the last, said that or claims that bright light early in the morning is quite important, right? And I think this makes a lot of sense. Like evolutionary again. We rise with the sun. But I, for one, do not have a garden and a large house, and I cannot go out into my garden and do then the grounding work in my garden and my swimming pool and the real light. I live in an apartment, and it's always said that to do it in the first 60 minutes to set your circadian rhythm. And I think circadian biology really is a thing. It has been 10 years ago. People laughed about it, but it has been published well that we are really also aligned with circadian means daily rhythm. This is often set by light because the sun was our main signal that was always there. Yes, and that's the idea that you do bright light therapy. And for example, bright light therapy is also therapy, that's why the name, for SAD, seasonal affective disorder. When you have in the northern regions less light during winter, people have more depression, and this can be addressed, careful with cured, addressed with exposure to very bright light, but you need to reach certain lux, which is the intensity, and durations. And that's why this was prohibitive in my morning routine, because I didn't want to stare or sit next to a very bright light that is like a panel for some time. So we acquired those, and we really liked them. And our sleep scores and also the wake-up time actually really went a little bit back. But
how do you quantify wake-up time?
With the Oura Ring, you can check what's your wake-up
Yeah.
time, and then you see the trend. And since we got it, it went for me at least a little bit earlier. And as I said, I don't like to get up, so it's great when it's easier and earlier. And the idea is really
the lux value of this compared to the sun, basically. Let's say a spring day or so.
Yes.
I don't know if it matters much.
No. You cannot compare anything to outdoor. Outdoor is always like insane.
Yeah.
But you have in the studies always either 5 or 10,000 you have to have for at least 20 or 30 minutes, so 5 or 10. And these diodes would not deliver this at this range, but at this closeness, they claim it's equivalent.
So this range is like holding it in front of you.
Yes, as arm length.
Versus actually having it.
Exactly.
What is it? 1 inch from your eyeball.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really only possible because they are so close.
Yeah.
And this is a French company, I think, and they're really, I think, the market leaders. Luminet are they called, but no affiliation. We do not sell anything. You don't need it. If you can go outside, great. Take your coffee outside. It's just one of these things that is the latest edition, and we really liked the investment. Yeah. What do you do when you get up to get ready?
Unfortunately, check my phone, not the news, but just if I got any messages and my email. But I'm super quick with this. I don't check my work email, just my private email and my WhatsApp messages. So
this already wakes you up.
Exactly. No, it's just somehow I just know, okay, nothing to do now immediately. And in Europe, we use WhatsApp instead of messaging normally. And then I get up. I usually have to use the toilet first. So I go there and then I make myself a coffee.
With caffeine.
With caffeine. I just like the taste as well. And I haven't found good decaf that actually tastes close to what, especially for espresso, a normal espresso tastes like. And then I usually, while drinking the coffee, now do connections on the New York Times website. It's like
what is it?
It's what Hank Green plays in his videos.
It's a game I always turn off. Until you told me, I was so confused. Maybe you want to quickly tell.
Wake up. Yeah, it's, you have 16 words, 4 groups of 4, and you need to find the 4 groups of 4.
Okay.
And it can be really hard also because it's very America specific. So I don't know a word or I don't know the reference sometimes, but most days I can figure it out in the end. And then usually either I drink a second coffee or I get ready for my workout, and then I do my indoor workout. And then I prepare my coffee for work. So I have like a machine that makes a single cup of coffee. So then I make like a proper, not espresso, but normal cup of coffee, and that I take with me to work. So I drink usually 2 espressos and a cup of coffee per day.
And the cup is in terms of beans the same amount as an espresso or
roughly,
more?
Yeah.
Roughly, okay.
Usually 14 grams for espresso, between 15 and 17 grams for the cup.
Okay. So one could assume it's equal levels of caffeine. All of them are then consumed.
Extraction, I think, is a bit higher with... so it's basically pour over equivalent what the cup of machine is. think it's a little bit higher for espresso, but I don't know if it matters.
Is it? Okay.
A little bit lower for espresso.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yes.
And I now filter my espresso.
How do you do that? In the machine or afterwards?
No, I have I don't know how well this works.
Yeah.
But you can get these similar to for the AeroPress. You can get these small circular filters. So I put that at the paper filters. Good. And I put those at the bottom of my espresso basket.
Basket, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I make my espresso, and I have a metal filter on top that does nothing in terms of filtering, really, but it just distributes the water more evenly, and it prevents my shower head from becoming dirty with coffee.
Yes.
So it's just to keep it clean more easily. But the filtering is because, in addition to high blood pressure in my family, we also tend to have poor cholesterol values.
Yeah, me too.
So I have high cholesterol officially even, but the HDL-LDL ratio is really good. So I really don't know what in the end the consequence of that would be. And there's other things I maybe could or should measure as, forget the name, not Matthew Walker, but
Peter Tia.
I think he has some description in his book of what things you could measure.
Yeah, ApoB would be the proxy for more accurate LDL cholesterol estimation, because it really quantifies the number, like again numerics against what the content of the LDL protein is, the cholesterol, which is, we don't care. It's about how many of those proteins or lipoproteins do you have numerically. ApoB would be the measurement, but they correlate highly. So if one is high, the other one is also high. For my morning routine is a lot simpler than yours, I think. So when do you have your first coffee? I wanted to have these parallels, because what you said now is caffeine, and if I roughly calculate, it's about 300 milligrams probably, and you consume probably the cup far before lunch. You're done with it around 10, I guess.
I mean, my last cup will be at work, which is usually somewhere that I finish it between 10:30 and noon. That is empty. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's great. Caffeine as well. But I have disentangled caffeine from coffee. I have decaf coffee in the morning that we prepare with an, how's it called? Cold brew drip using the AeroPress. So I have this device, it's called Puk, because you put it on top of your AeroPress, you fill it with cold water, you have to open it until it makes puk.
Is this a German invention?
It's American. I don't know, but I think it's because it has an extension that is only for US bottles. So it's definitely a US product.
I'm just always wondering if certain sound effects come from certain countries. And I
because
feel
of the language.
Yeah, exactly. Puk sounds very German to me. But
maybe the inventors German, but definitely an American product, a US American product. And and then basically this I do at night before I go to bed. I build this construction. And in the morning, and in the morning, basically it has run through, and it generated cold brew coffee that I just then either in summer drink cold, like it is in room temperature, or at an ice cube. And in winter nowadays, I just boil some water, and then I combine the water and the concentrated coffee, so to speak. But this is decaf, and then I have decoupled this, and I have Nootropic from bulk that has caffeine, and I take this with worth of 100 milligrams of caffeine when I wake up, after I wake up 8 a.m. or so, and then between 10 and 11, the second dose, which then again contains 100 milligrams. That's it. I'm on 200 milligrams of caffeine nowadays, which is my all-time low since I started consuming caffeine, I think. But I had great results. I posted them once before, but we can discuss them.
And dark chocolate, does it add anything?
I don't think. Honestly, I don't think so. If you eat really like one piece or so, but I have no regular dark chocolate consumption anymore.
When we started working together, there always used to be this box that you had with you with like a specific amount of dark chocolate and some other stuff as well.
Nuts. Yeah, exactly. It was nuts, specific nuts. And I don't eat the hard stuff anymore, as we have discussed. My tooth tend to break, so I just stay away from it. And also nuts and dark chocolate is extremely calorie dense. So I've kind of removed it for these two somewhat reasons, and this is now not a thing anymore. So this we have in common. So we do activate with caffeine, and then also like a morning workout, but we will end. I would say we will end there. But additionally, a cold shower. That's what I do. But we have discussed this in the
about
previous
the
episode.
caffeine thing
Yeah.
and cholesterol that we mentioned before.
Yeah.
So I filter because I heard some vague evidence that filtered coffee had less chance of increasing your cholesterol.
You sent it to me.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
You sent this to me as,
but
hey,
I didn't research it deeply. Yeah.
Okay, but I did then.
Yeah.
I presented even in a seminar then, but you were not at the seminar, I think. Or were you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I used, quick context, I used an AI agent that is trained on literature research for biomedical research that has access without paywall to the full papers and also judges the quality of a paper and the journal and knows what citations are. So can really well contextualize. So I didn't do a ChatGPT. It was really I used a dedicated tool for academic literature research. And to demonstrate, I presented this, and to demonstrate it, I asked it exactly this question. And yes, it is really the case, and it has been reliably shown that there are these, I think it's called, maybe we just put it in the notes, I think, or can I recall? Cafe stall or something.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like cafe. That actually has really shown that in a lot of people, not everyone, a lot of people increases LDL cholesterol in the serum, like in the blood. And that you want to avoid, and you can avoid it if you use a paper filter, not a metal filter, because only paper filters retain these lipids. These are basically fats from going into your coffee, and then problem solved.
Question is if my high pressure somehow affects it, because I put high pressure on my espresso, of course.
Yeah, it pushes it through.
Exactly, so I don't know.
I have no idea.
This is something I didn't research, but it was like cheap to buy, and I was like, no downside.
Exactly,
so
there's no downside. If it tastes for you the same, then you still have your espresso every day, and you might have mitigated the risk of increased LDL cholesterol.
Exactly.
Due to
but okay, so you take a cold shower?
Yes, this we discussed in the previous episode what the rationale is, and it still works for me. I start with music, so I put in my AirPods, or you can put any other headphones, and I just start music that is exciting to me. It can be my favorite soundtrack right now, or just electronic dance music.
Taylor Swift
soundtrack.
For the win, right?
I really tried. It doesn't work for me. She's a fascinating character, but her music just doesn't resonate with me in the same way it resonates with the rest of the world, it seems. I
also know nothing. Like I don't specifically listen to Taylor Swift. I know not much about her life.
Okay. I wanted to know, and I tried.
Yeah.
I tried like essentials.
Also nothing against it, but...
No, yeah, exactly. It didn't draw me back to ever play the playlist again. And then I have one more somewhat esoteric thing. The cool name is Cyclic Hyperventilation, but I think in the interwebs it's often known as Wim Hof breathing. And I do this on a acupuncture mat.
Just as a background, you know that there's now a lot of Wim Hof negative things going around because you're never in the news. Like for people who don't know, Stefan basically doesn't watch the news. He doesn't know what's going on in the world. This is not part of his life.
I rely on people like Rob telling me if there's something really important going on, and now I will learn
so
something.
I think there's a couple of things. So nationally, Wim Hof, because I'm Dutch, he's Dutch, it's a lot reported on that allegedly, there is some kind of domestic violence with his ex-wife. There used to be. His whole organization, in some ways, allegedly, is sometimes a bit sketchy in terms of money making.
Definitely.
And third, again, allegedly, some of the things he recommends and practiced could have been quite dangerous, and people drowned in
drowned even
because they did certain exercises in the
near water,
water, and then like they were doing a cold plunge while doing this thing alone, and then
Okay.
And it's also funny that basically some of the stories he told about what he did in his life, it's like that's so weird and crazy and dangerous, and it doesn't make any sense. Like again, I'm paraphrasing here what I heard him say in a video, but he told some interviewer, I think that, again, I'm not 100% sure, but that he was like bathing in like at Vondel Park, which is like a park, I think in the Netherlands, where there was like a fountain, and he basically sat down like without anything on one of the fountain heads, and then something in him perforated because of the water, if I remember this correctly. So this is more funny. That has nothing to do with his method, but just I feel like a lot of what he discovered in the end, some things worked, but also probably a lot doesn't work, and it's not really really science-based. And I actually have a paper where I'm co-author where we used his method.
Okay.
Like
to mitigate immune. Was it the one with the festival?
With LPS. No, it was with
LPS.
So LPS is basically a part of a bacteria, let's say a bacterial wall, that you can induce a sepsis-like response, or I don't know how you would describe it, an overreaction of the immune system.
Inflammatory response, I would say. Your immune system reacts to it because it recognizes a part of a bacteria.
Exactly.
Yeah. But there's no bacteria associated.
No.
Just like if you use it.
I mean, it's part of a bacteria, but it's not a full bacteria, so it cannot do anything.
It can reproduce.
No,
also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we used the technique, and I have to now say it correctly, or they tried to use the technique to mitigate some of the symptoms.
Exactly.
And then we did some metabolomics, and I honestly don't remember all the details. It's been a while. And there seemed to be some effect, but I also think as in science, you're always looking for the things that change, and you do your multiple testing correction. Yeah. But then the question is, how strong is the biological significance of this?
Yeah.
I don't remember all the details of the paper.
Yeah.
It's been a while. It was also, I was a co-author, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think I was just a co-author, not a shared first. For one of them, I might have been shared first, but I don't think it was his protocol in the end.
Yeah. But just what you said, things he discovered, right? I think as far as I know only this one technique. Basically, everything revolves around this, as far as I know. And this is nothing he discovered. This has been out there. And there's also a third name. So cyclic hyperventilation is what people use now because it really nicely describes what you do. You cyclically hyperventilate. But he combined it somehow with cold exposure. And that's his thing. But there's even, I think, an Indian term for it because they have it already in ancient scripture. Also, these kind of breathing techniques. So they're really not discovered in a sense by him or developed. It was just picking up stuff and rebranding it. And it's a little bit new agey, I think, still. And then the whole biohacker crowd jumped on it. So it's all this sketchy, as you say, very sketchy thing. But with the cyclic hyperventilation, it's quite easy explained. You hyperventilate, you so breathe very fast for, let's say, 30 iterations, and then you exhale fully and you hold your breath for some time, and then you repeat this as often as you used to do it, do 2 cycles. And the idea is here that you really hyperactivate everything because you get extremely oxygenated. So your pulse oximeter would, if you would quantify it, your oximeter would go up to saturation, basically 100%. And then during the exhale and then you wait, it really drops. It really drops below 90 to 85, whatever. You can hold safely, so to speak, and then you repeat it. And the idea is really then that you adapt a little bit to and get a little bit CO2 tolerant or more CO2 tolerant. And at the same time, hyperventilation leads to release of, again, adrenals, norepinephrine, and so on, and cortisol, such that you ramp up a little bit, again, for the purpose of, I want to wake up in the morning, I want to activate myself. And I pair this with lying on an acupuncture mat on my back and have my feet elevated on the couch. And the purpose of that is that I basically stimulate a lot my back. And there are also a lot of mumbo-jumbo claims. Acupuncture has some good science, some bad science. I think it really depends. We don't exactly know how these things work. But here, I think the thing why this works is it simply triggers the increase of blood flow to a high degree. And then after some time, so this is uncomfortable in the beginning, and then after some time, everything relaxes, and you have a really red back as well. Nothing is really harmed, like you don't have scratches or so, but you have a hyper circulated and high blood flow in all your back. And in general, all these methods also sauna to some degree, or also sports, or for example, a supplement like ginkgo biloba, it's like via some mechanisms, it improves blood flow to a high degree, and just getting oxygen and nutrients everywhere is good for the tissue. It just makes sense, right? And this is, I think, the effect of why I like it. I like it. It relaxes then my back. And having the feet up is also a technique to reset your spine, and basically everything goes to the back via gravitation.
But this acupuncture mat is just to have less surface area touching?
No, to really have these spikes. It's like these circular spikes, and a lot of them on a whole mat. that go into your skin and elicit a response. And it's really, it's like poking you strongly in the beginning, and then you just get used to it, and the blood flow is just increased a lot because there is a response.
But it's not about the spots being in specific locations.
No. This is like, really equally distributed. You just go on. And that's why I'm saying it's not acupuncture as like it's just random where it is. It's just increasing blood flow. And I think this is the basic principle. And also after cold shower, your body wants to heat up, right? And pushes out the circulation and everything goes up, that your body has an incentive to heat yourself up, and heat is also activating. So all of these things just serve the purpose of get out of sleep inertia and get at the peak activated state for being ready for the day for me.
Cool. So that's then you're more or less awake.
Then I'm ready, and then I take my walk to work, and then you meet me, and I'm hopefully activated enough and to do some cognitive work.
But talking about activation,
yes.
Today and other days, I've seen you take something that you didn't take a few years ago.
That's true.
And that somehow, just because of the connotation, to me elicits a negative response.
Yeah.
And I would like to hear your initial thoughts about this. And we're talking about nicotine, which you can take in ways we know are very negative to your health. But if you take it as a pure substance, it can apparently have potential positive effects, or at least there's a reason you decided that the cost-benefit analysis was worth it for you.
Yes, exactly. So nicotine has a bad connotation because of its association with cigarettes and tobacco.
Yeah, and vaping now.
And vaping, yeah. So all the things how you consume it as a byproduct, but it's the core component that makes the action addictive. So the addictive component is definitely nicotine, but it's not a carcinogen. And a lot of people do not separate this. So nicotine has no bearing on cancer at all, although traditional tobacco has, I think, more than 80 carcinogens. And none of them is nicotine. Nicotine has no carcinogenic potential as far as the WHO classification goes. But this includes 80 components of tobacco, so it was not missed. But it is the thing that makes behavior repetitive and addictive. And this I also take for stimulating, but not in the morning. Usually it's for me an afternoon boost. Occasionally, with the minimal dose I can get, I get it via chewing gum, that I take the smallest dose that is available, and then I half it to get 1 milligram chewing gum that then I can take and chew, and thereby even release it also slower. So I don't even get the full milligram quickly, and it's a good alternative for me to caffeine in the afternoon because it has a much shorter half-life. So caffeine has, I don't know, it depends on the person also if you're a fast metabolizer or not, but the consensus is 6 to 8 hours, I think. Half-life, that means after 6 to 8 hours, you still have half of the amount in your system.
Mm-hmm. And basically you can double that each time to get another half of what is remaining. So if it's 6 hours and after 12 hours, you have a quarter and so on.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the crux with caffeine and sleep. And nicotine has it 4 to 6 hours. So it's just something that is earlier out of your system. And it still has to be far away from sleep. But all things equal, I decided rather to have a stimulant that has a different mechanism of action, because not layering caffeine on caffeine, and also a shorter half-life. This is the main rationale.
Do you know anything about withdrawal, addictiveness, and all these things of caffeine versus nicotine?
It depends on the amount.
Because people are sort of accepted, we have accepted as a society that we're addicted to caffeine, that some people might get headaches if they stop taking it. How is it with nicotine? It
depends on the amount. So for caffeine, we know that people who are regular consumers and don't have withdrawal symptoms, most of the people get some kind of fatigue or headache, which only lasts, I think, 72 hours or so. And then you're basically reset. So if you say, oh no, I'm addicted to caffeine. Yes, okay, then stop for 72 hours and then you're not addicted to it anymore, which is good. I have no idea about these numbers with nicotine, but the realm that I am operating in with at most 1 milligram per day, and then this only every second day, for example, I've never had anything. So I have no withdrawal, I have no urge, I have no addiction.
What is the effective dose? Because We
Yeah.
take quite a lot of caffeine before we
Yeah.
notice anything.
Yeah.
1 milligram of caffeine would do nothing.
Nothing. No, this is not comparable,
Yeah.
so to speak. No, 1 milligram of nicotine as a non-used to it person, and this I consider myself still because I always have an effect. I didn't get used to it, so to speak. Leads to a response, basically. But
If you subjectively compare it to a cup of coffee, would it be less, more, equally intense? Or to 100 milligrams of caffeine as you are used to?
If I would add 100 milligram to my daily
If you were
protocol,
to replace all your caffeine moments with 1 milligram of nicotine doses.
I think I don't feel caffeine at all. I just would feel a withdrawal.
Yeah.
But I do feel every time I take nicotine because I take it so rarely.
And how does it feel compared to caffeine? Is it just a very similar effect? And what are the receptors? Like, how should I have no idea how this works.
It's completely different in terms of biochemistry. It binds to these nicotinic receptors, and I don't know exactly the downstream pathways, but I know it's very different. So caffeine is more an adenosine receptor inhibitor. So what does it mean? Over the course of a day, you accumulate adenosine in your system. One reason can be, as we have discussed before, this energy currency, ATP, is adenosine triphosphate. So there's adenosine is quite important, and maybe if we use up energy, more and more adenosine accumulates. But adenosine is involved in a lot of processes and building blocks. So I think there are many reasons why we accumulate adenosine in our body over time, and this binds to these receptors and then signals downstream. The more it binds in a dose-dependent way, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. So this is the signal that it propagates. And this makes sense. You should be tired and sleepy at the end of the day. One of the mechanisms that this happens is adenosine accumulation. And what caffeine does, it replaces this parking spot in the receptor of adenosine because it fits into the parking spot, but it does not trigger the downstream go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep signal. And basically that's what you do. You borrow from your sleepiness from the future. And then there are other downstream effects as well. So there is shown that this has cognitive performance increases. And even if you're used to it, you still get them, but you don't get euphoria. Because if you take someone who's caffeine naive and give them 100 or 200 milligrams, they get a euphoric energy burst. But that's not sustained very long. And also if you then just do it every day, you get accommodated immediately. Yeah, the issue with this half-life and so on, it stays there for very long and you don't get this sleepiness signal. And even if you get the sleepiness signal, you're so exhausted and just fall asleep. Or you're one of those people who say, I drink an espresso after dinner and I'm fine. Yes, you fall asleep, but it has been shown that the sleep architecture is disrupted. And that's again what is sleep architecture. It's these phases or stages that we go through and that lead to whatever sleep is used for. And we know some things that sleep is necessary for, but we definitely don't know everything. And we know that one of the fastest ways to kill someone or any animal that is actually sleeping is sleep deprive them. It's quite fast, actually.
Yeah.
I think there's water is quicker, remove water, but then it's already sleep, I think. Because
in terms of taking things away. Yes.
Taking things away, exactly. This oxygen is interesting. Oxygen is even faster, yeah. It's very true.
Or the ability to get rid of CO2 maybe is even faster. But
yes, exactly. But this is always a good, somewhat heuristic to see how important something is to an organism, right? So what does it rely on and how fast does it kill you? Yes, but nicotine is also has definitely downsides. So for example, it is the addictive component. So there is a high likelihood to get addicted and you get used to it. That's also something. If you really use it regularly, you need a higher and higher dose to elicit the same response. And then combined with addiction is a vicious circle.
And is it a harder addiction to kick, basically?
Than caffeine?
Yeah.
I think so. And I don't know the exact physiological withdrawal symptoms and psychological ones. I think psychologically it's very strong. Otherwise, people would have an easier time to quit smoking. But I don't know the exact
Mhm.
details. But I think people really have also sweats and stuff.
Yeah.
But I really don't know.
So you're being very careful with your
Yes,
dosage.
exactly. So this is one downside, and the other downside is that it's a vasoconstrictor. That means it constricts your vessels and thereby increases blood pressure. And if you do that on a regular basis, you would get or could get systematically high blood pressure, right? That's why also smoking, among other things, leads to high blood pressure. It's not only the nicotine in the tobacco, but it's a contributor.
Yeah.
So smoking has more, or tobacco consumption in general has more reasons for high blood pressure than only nicotine, but nicotine is a contributor. So these are the two things I am conscious of and try to think about. But for me, the risk ratio, and it's really you asked the difference to coffee. Right now, coffee is just the thing I do. And sometimes when I had a very bad night and I know I have to stay up late because there's an evening event or so, then I do drink coffee at 1 p.m. or so.
So crazy.
Yeah, sometimes I go really crazy. But for nicotine, it's kind of this, you are in this late afternoon slump, don't want to do a specific chore, and you add nicotine and you just do it. You can do something really boring, really long.
Yeah.
So for these kind of things, it's great.
That's why you took some just before we recorded this podcast.
Yeah, it also makes you, I mean, the listener can judge, it also makes you more fluent, especially if you're fatigued or whatever.
Yeah, well, just these German speaking. Anyhow, so, okay, I think I will still not take it, but just because I don't think I need it, and this is so wrong of me to say it, but it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything that I could be addicted to that has more consequences than coffee for me. Like that is harder to get rid of than coffee. Whereas for coffee, I feel it's quite easy for me to stop. Like I had to give a talk the other day, and I know that if I stay calmer if I don't eat or drink anything besides water before the talk. And then in the end, I didn't have coffee until 3 in the afternoon or so.
Yeah.
Then I did have a coffee,
Yeah.
but I didn't need it. It was just like, oh, kind of nice stuff. So I just realized, like, if there's no coffee around, I'm also fine, and I don't get a headache most of the time.
Yeah.
So
I think the two big takeaways here could be that nicotine is not carcinogen. That doesn't lead to cancer. I think that's a really,
as far as we know,
bad misconception. Yeah, as far as we know right now.
Yeah.
In this moment.
Again, we're not medical doctors.
Yes. No, I have it. Vacations are always a good. It depends. Vacations are a good litmus test if you're addicted to anything. So, for example, when we travel, we try to do it very light with a one bag travel. It's called just one small backpack. And in our recent travel, I went for 16 days without any supplements or nothing. Like also without devices, also just without anything. Obviously, I had coffee at that place over there. But that's just because I also enjoy the taste and it's part of the culture somewhere. So you just want to try it. But there was no issue. I didn't have any withdrawal symptoms whatsoever of anything that I take or do as far as I can judge. Nevertheless, I was super happy to be home again, as I'm usually when I can do everything in my routine. And then I feel just more to be my best self, if this makes sense. So I just feel more capable of being like cognitively there or in the moment or focusing or fluent or have more energy or more patient, whatever. In all dimensions, I feel more myself when I have everything in place.
I sense that about you. So the closing topic, and you put it here as daily activity more than exercise, I guess, the way you phrase it.
Yeah.
So a minimal effective doses. So we know we might know that more from medicine.
Yeah, sorry.
But you use it for your movement or exercise.
Yeah. So here, this topic I wanted to bring, and I was curious, what is your daily thing that you consider contributing to your activity, but is not part of your regimented, planned exercise program?
I mean, cycling back and forth to work is like the main thing. It's like 5 kilometers there, 5 kilometers back. Takes me 15 minutes or so on like a heavy city bike. So I still try to go fast, but I don't consider it as part of a workout.
And the exercise you mentioned previously that you do after waking up?
That's indoor
part of-
cycling or running. And then
Okay.
some weightlifting, that's more flexible. So like after we record this podcast, it's now evening, probably do some weightlifting then just because it didn't fit in the days before. But that's
Okay.
like randomly distributed throughout the week.
Okay, and that's part rather of your exercise regimen that you say, okay, I want to have one strength workout per week or every
2 or 3 per week, yeah.
two. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering because I have the walking to work and from work. So this would be the equivalent to your cycling. But in the morning, I do really every day without excuse this, I call it minimal effective dosage strength workout, where I only do pull-ups, push-ups, and nowadays split squats with body weight. And I've been doing this for a few years already. And just every month, I increase the number of reps by 1. And this is non-negotiable. This is after my shower, interestingly. I don't do it, like I get out of breath, but I don't start to sweat. And right now I'm at 55 pull-ups, 55 push-ups, and 55 split squats. But the push-ups and pull-ups I cannot do in one set. So nowadays I have to split it up into the pull-ups in 3 sets and the push-ups into 2 sets to get to the number, basically. And this I do just every day. And this worked well for me because I wanted to have something to tell my muscles, my skeletal muscle, to I need you. Please stay. Maintenance. But I wanted to implement it in a daily routine because I think it's easier to have it just as a non-negotiable.
Wait, then every month you add 1.
Yes.
So there must be a limit there, right? Like if you do this another 10 years.
Yeah, I was
120
wondering.
more.
I was wondering. Yes, exactly. I was wondering when it will taper off. And my current limit is that I don't want it to take longer than 15 minutes. That's kind of the thing. Otherwise, it gets out of proportion. And also, the intensity is quite important to me. And with intensity, I mean injury or insult to my muscles that actually should be the stimulus to trigger the response, should be only as strong that I can do it again 24 hours later because it's a daily habit.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, there was then research showing in terms of reps and so on, how much you need to actually have improvements. And this falls pretty well into this framework, although this is novel research. I have it on my website linked then. It's a funny coincidence. I didn't know about the research and build it then. I just built it and started with 10 each. So we can calculate how many months ago this was. Yeah.
But how non-negotiable is it? What are the exceptions?
Yeah. When I have early appointments, then it sometimes falls away. But I'm in the really, really lucky position that I have very rarely not the choice of when the appointment has to be for work or whatever. So I usually can choose after 10. And then when I'm sick, when I would be really sick.
But holidays?
No, that's a great thing.
How do you do the pull-ups?
That depends. Often, this is something I check out when we check into the hotel. I ask, do you have somewhere a pull-up bar or a fitness center? And then I just do it on the way out, the pull-ups. Or just go for the 50 minutes. Okay, I will go now for 50 minutes there to this fitness center, do this. And even already my day clothes. If I really don't find anything, I look out for a table like this. And I do these table pull-ups in a safe manner.
So we have here a table
Yes.
for those who are listening that we are sitting in front of.
Yes, a sturdy table. That's very important because you do not want to injure yourself. And if all fails, I can do on the bed of the hotel room, like Supermans, like you lie on your belly and you stretch your arms and your feet, and then you kind of activate your back muscular, and then you do this. At least it's something. Yeah. It's more than nothing.
That's
so
true.
that's the idea that you have this don't skip, just adapt, basically. Yeah, and then in the evening, do you work out then the cycling and running and strength exercises you mentioned is whenever it fits, or?
No, mostly my longer workouts are in the morning. So I would do my running more, unless it's the weekend, then I have afternoon time. But otherwise, I do it in the morning before work. Indoor cycling I do before work. And then the very long cycling sessions are on the weekend, or in the summer can be in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
That depends a bit. But I feel best working out in the morning.
Mhm.
As for weightlifting is less important, but for cardio, morning or early afternoon feel best. Otherwise, especially for indoor cycling, I just feel so weak in the evening. Even though I'm still haven't eaten in the morning, I can go much harder. At least how good I feel
Yeah.
during. And I think the only thing is, I think power wise, I'm a bit better if I do it a little bit later and had some food and some carbs or in me.
Mhm.
But otherwise, I just feel good and sober in the
You do it
morning. working
basically
out.
fasted, right?
I always do it fasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I even ran close to I had one gel with me, but
Yes.
but what I told you 1 or 2 episodes ago is that just did interval runs and then I felt good, so I made it a half marathon. And I just
Nice.
had one gel with me by chance still in the pocket
I
of
guess.
the vest.
You're well adapted, fuel adapted, that you
Yeah.
could switch between the different
Exactly.
fueling.
And I also, it cannot happen always. Maybe I was also secretly carb loaded or something. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Me neither. I don't know. Mornings I cannot do something real in a sense. I mean, what I do is already something or more than for most. But whenever I do this, my day is like perturbed. I'm tired the whole day, so I much more prefer if I have to do a run or a full strength workout session, then I do it in the late afternoons or evenings for some people. Yeah, and I have in my calendar now to increase a little bit my exercise. I have this kind of everyday activity appointment with myself. It's half an hour that I consider
Zoom meeting link here.
yeah, that I consider taking a very hot bath, more than 40 degrees for half an hour or so. This has been shown to be having similar effects of zone 2 training, where I'm like, nice, I can watch YouTube and do zone 2 training. Or when I watch TV or YouTube, I do it on the TV. And while doing it, I have to be on our tiny trampoline. And then I bounce up and down while watching something. So I try to do this. I'm not really good with that.
Yeah.
It's really like it's every day there, and most of the days it gets deleted. But it's just a reminder to do something in the evening. Maybe also to close the ring, like fulfilling the quota that we discussed last time.
Just for our listeners, I don't know how it is currently, but when I met Stefan, or a year after I met him, he showed me his calendar. And every day is completely planned in with every small thing you can imagine. Everything is planned beforehand. I'm more spontaneous. I'm Dutch. I plan a lot of things, but not as much as you plan. Is it still the case? Like, is every hour basically filled?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And then I also adapted after the fact. If something took longer, I adapted to have some kind of diary. So I try to plan ahead, and then I adapt to have a diary. And also to put, it was to some degree even a tracking, right? It's tracking to have a diary. When I did when did I work on what? How long did I take a workout? This is interesting information, especially now with Gemini. I just ask it and it can access my calendar and it tells me, oh, your last run was on and took so long. So there is information in there, but even back when I didn't track food with my Aura app, I put into I also have the food as an appointment, like lunch, and then I put roughly what I had so that I have it somewhere, right? But yeah, I still have that to a high degree.
And 2 questions to close off.
Yeah.
First is, what is the funniest non-R-rated thing that you track in your calendar that somebody would be like, why do you track this?
Funniest non-R-rated. Can I check my
Check
calendar?
it, yeah. In the meantime,
pre-plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll ask you, so you don't do a lot of cardio actually? Like your cardio, you're kind of cardio low.
Yeah, I'm low everything nowadays somehow. In a good week, I aim to have one run that is as long as I enjoy it, usually half an hour. And also my route is half an hour. And one strength workout that is 45 minutes most of the time. This I have, like, if I manage to do this, both of them once a week, and then I have my fixed mornings and my evenings at least 3 or 4 times, then I'm golden and I feel great, and also I'm happy with everything. But life, sometimes there's 4 weeks,
Yeah.
no run.
But do you think this somehow negatively affects your lifespan potentially? Or do you think what you do already comes close enough?
I really don't know. We would have to measure determinants of lifespan that are related to fitness, right? I think in the strength compartment, I'm quite good.
Yeah.
Especially if we measure it or divide it by my body weight. I think like being able to do 25 pull-ups is good strength baseline, or I don't know, 50 push-ups or so with your body weight. With cardio, I have no intuition, and that's also why it's really good to have joined your sleep running study, where there are actually 2 VO2 max tests with different exercises like running and cycling in there, which you would be just curious. I do not have any value to compare to. That's bad if I got worse or not, right? But it's a good baseline to see and establish now with the age of, I don't know, 34, soon 35, what is my VO2 max?
Is there a value where you would think, ooh, I need to do more? Like, when would you get worried?
I think there's no value for me to get worried. I think there are values that would surprise me because I do think of myself as being fit, and I would hope for something like average for my age bracket. With this little current training, I would be happy with average. I have no idea what my average for my age bracket is right now. And everything above average
probably
would be great.
high 40s or so. I would need to look it up,
Yeah.
but let's see. Do you have a funny calendar entry, or would it be too hard to find now?
I think it's mostly boring stuff. Like the funniest is really this recent addition, or it's not that recent, but recent in relative terms, of having every evening this activity with hot bath or trampoline.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, nothing you can find in other calendars. The other fixed points are just lunch and dinner, for example. Every day it's roughly at the same time, so that I have at least a guiding timing, which I then have to shift according to how life develops.
And you share this calendar with your partner?
My partner has full read access, such that she can look up if we have time or have important appointments. And we have a shared calendar as well for shared activities. Yes.
Awesome. I'm not as planned as you.
No funny
I don't
entries?
have funny, and I also don't put a lot in my calendar, just like work appointments. And I don't know, next week the guy comes to check my thermo, what do you call this, boiler for the house. Yeah. So let's close off with a quote.
Yes, please let us know if you enjoy these quotes or if you think
before we fully close off, also let us know if we got anything wrong. Of course, we'll try to amend that in future videos. But if we say anything that isn't true, let us know. Also, anything I said about Wim Hof was just things I read and cannot always verify, and they're all alleged.
Yes. But also things when there was something updated in the current literature, right? We do not have trackers for everything we talk about. I mean, literature trackers for everything we talk about, such that we get notifications. We cannot scour, similar to medical experts, the whole literature every time something happens. So we are actually appreciating it if you share papers or reports or your own experience with some of the things we talk about.
So, and don't forget to subscribe, all those things, but let's go to our final quote of the day.
Yes, and I want to take us out with a quote by Philip Dormer Stanhope. And he said, supposedly, habits are either the best or the worst things in the world. They either carry us to heaven or hurl us to hell. Form only those that will prove an honor to you. And this connects to our last point where we were like discussing what we do every day in the morning. And I do hope they do carry us to heaven, not hurl us to hell.
I think with my phone, I'm in between. Not too bad, not too good. Then see you next week and have a great one until then.
Bye.
Good. Jinx.
I also said it like you. Good.
Good.